Fewer and fewer people are answering the call to fight fires on their own time. The numbers just aren't there, forcing cities across the country to put an end to their volunteer departments, including right here in Southwest Virginia. Wytheville's Town Council unanimously voted to dissolve theirs after 170 years. And as 10 News reporter Taj Simmons explains, the decision isn't being taken lightly.
Things have changed in the world. You know, volunteerism isn't what it used to be.
Town Council officially ended the volunteer fire department Tuesday night, and now a dozen paid professionals will take their place.
I know there's some hurt feelings, and we're really sorry about that, but we do think that we need a long-term vision.
The numbers were not there to keep the VFD alive long-term. Wytheville had 11 volunteers, and the state of Virginia mandates every VFD to have at least 20. The lack of volunteers could be chalked up to a cultural change in Virginia and beyond.
I can remember the days when I was a kid when somebody could run off the assembly line and fight a fire for an hour. Things aren't quite like that today.
According to the National Fire Protection Agency, there are only 682,000 volunteer firefighters nationwide, the lowest number since 1986. New Fire Chief Mark Brady says it makes more sense for Wytheville to switch to firefighters that always have the uniform on.
We can't put the citizens of the town of Wytheville at risk based on who can come and who can't. So when we have paid staff, we're guaranteed a specific amount of people responding to that call.
Brady hasn't ruled out bringing back volunteers to work alongside the professionals.
You have a department and a lot of volunteers that have put a lot of time into this. I respect that immensely.
In Wytheville, Taj Simmons, 10 News, working for you.